What is up, you guys? This is Matt Ban here, and today I wanted to do something different instead of just other than just gameplays. I want to do this. This is like the first video of my tier list series, where I talked about the tier list of characters and what I would rank some specific circumstances in my opinion. And I wanted to start it off with none other than Dead by Daylight and its killers. I'm more of a fan of the game's killers than it is of its survivors, mostly just because it's just satisfying to get some kills as a killer and just basically just beating them in the game just for these types of killers. Some killers may be better than others in my opinion, some of them may be worse. If your killer is lower than you usually would expect, let me know in the comments below and tell me what you think should be on which tier in your opinion. So let's just get this started. So first up, we got the Trapper. The Trapper, in my opinion, he's just not my favorite. He's more of that guy who'll be like, he'll usually would put, the only times where he will put traps in a good place, either like in pallets or in windows, which are good spots. But most of the time, I'm just not really a fan of playing as him that most of the time. So I'm just gonna put him rather in C tier. It's just not my favorite. But before I just continue, I want to put the characters or killers in the haven't played yet, just to make sure. So the characters I haven't played yet is the Hag, because I may own the Hag, but I'm just not really a fan of playing as the Hag. I don't have the Pig. I don't have the Spirit. I don't have the Plague. I don't have the Demogorgon for obvious reasons. I don't have the Oni. I don't really have the Deathslinger. I don't have the Blight. I don't really have the Twins. I don't have the Dredge either. I don't have the Artist either. So I think this is how much killers I really just don't own at all in anything in general. So here's the characters who I own: the Trapper, the Wraith, the Hillbilly, the Nurse, Michael Myers, the Doctor, the Huntress, Bubba Sawyer or Leatherface, Freddy Krueger, the Clown, aka what I call Ronald McDonald, the Legion, the Ghostface, Pyramid Head, the Trickster, Nemesis, Wesker recently, the Knight recently as well, Sadako, and Pinhead. So next I want to put on is the Wraith. The Wraith is actually more easy for me to play than he is to play as a Trapper, because he's more faster when he is cloaked. Meaning that when you're roaming in an area, trying to jump scare some people, which most of the time wouldn't really work. Most of the time, it just wouldn't work. However, he is good at speeding up and catching up to many of its survivors when it's in cloak mode. I mostly like how you're able to just run faster. For example, when you close the hatchet, like when you're invisible, it's best for me to be invisible when you're looking for a hatch or looking at either side of the exit when you close the hatch. It's also pretty good when the killer is when the survivor's on the gen and the killer just comes up behind you, just whacks the spell when it's so like right up close to you that it's basically right past its restraining order and just whacks the shit out of you with it. So honestly, I really like the Wraith and how it's played. However, I do think he's a little bit more basic, but that's just my opinion. So I'll put him more in the B tier. The Hillbilly, God, I suffered playing as him the most. This is because I'm more of a controller player, which is just more of an excuse for the fact that I'm just bad at the game. I just don't like his chainsaw ability in the way how he's just so like, I'm gonna charge up right at your ass right in front of the door, like the FBI just charges right in front of your doorstep for doing something that you didn't do. He basically just charges right up at you with his chainsaw, which is good. It's good at insta-downing people. It's I only think it's good when you're up close to people, or when you have iridescent add-ons that allows you to use the chainsaw silently. But the only times where you get satisfying playing as the Hillbilly is being able to knock people from a distance when you're charging right up at them. I'm just not a fan of playing as him because of how hard it is to play as him when you just have to rely on the abilities to instantly knock down people. But apart from just using that, I may suck playing as him, but maybe when I continue playing as him better, maybe I could get more kills as him and maybe I can rank him a little bit more higher. The Nurse, I may have played her a couple of times, but I just wasn't really a fan of her blink ability and how restricted that she is, which is the reason why she's a very hard character to really play as. And that's why she's more hard of a character to learn and to play as. So the Nurse, to put credit where credit is due, I do think that she's a bit more better and more satisfying to play as the ability. However, she is more harder to play as, which I think that's more better and more like reasonable than Hillbillies, which can be reasonable too, but he's ability is just not as comfortable using as like the nurse does. The nurse is better with jump scares and scaring the shit out of people from behind with the generators than other people would. Now, I would love to put Michael rather in S tier. Like, like you can see my banner, that my banner is a Michael Myers, Principal Skinner sort of thing that I put on. I like Michael because of how accurate he plays in this game. Usually, like, I think it's more accurate in the first Halloween movie, like in the first movie where Michael usually would stalk his victims by just staring them down until in the nighttime he eventually just gets a good advantage of them. I feel like that the game of Michael plays the same factor as Halloween 1978, but if it was just shortened for 15 minutes instead of just, and you can't really kill people unless you have a Tombstone Myers or you have a Mori with you that you're able to kill people with. I still put him S tier because I still think he's still is fun to play with. Because even though he's very reliant on stalking, he isn't very hard of a character to play as. I think he's more of a challenge than he is as a very hard character to play as. The Doctor, I'm not really a fan of playing as him because I may use his stuns wrong. I only use the static shock as like a radius thing to detect people around me. And I think you're meant to use his electricity abilities in order to actually stun the person who either is going to jump over a window or going through a pallet, which is the point of countering loops. So I might play as him more and I might eventually get him to be more likable, but I'm putting him in the same category as Trapper, Nurse, and just Trapper and Nurse. The Huntress is actually in A tier. And this is because that the Huntress's hatchet throws are just very satisfying dependent on what the distance that you're in. Like, sometimes you could miss and they end up going behind a wall in time, or you could just get lucky from like a 50 to 100 meter radius to 100 meter distance, just whack them in the face with it and you automatically win, and you automatically are just going so good with it, and people are just gonna be afraid of you for doing that. I never really used the Huntress's add-ons in their games, like in the games ever, because I never really used Iridescent Huntress at all. I used Ghostface and Michael's Iridescent add-ons, but everyone else's not really. So, but I do think Huntress is pretty satisfying to play as. I'm putting her in A tier. Bubba is going to be in B tier, and I think he's better using the chainsaw than the Hillbilly does, in my opinion. Bubba may be slower with his chainsaw, but he has better control of using his chainsaw. While the Hillbilly does have add-ons to use his control and to be able to control the chainsaw and the charging bit much more better with his add-ons, Bubba doesn't really need to. There are times, like, you can even shorten the time on when to get the chainsaw ready and when it's the right time to cool down. And I think it's just better to use with his chainsaw, much more better than the Hillbilly does, in my opinion. So I just think it's just more easier. Freddy Krueger, I'm not really a fan of him as a character, but I do think of him, he's a pretty good character to play as. But I'll put him in a tier similar to Rafe and Bubba. This is because of his abilities such as Dream Pallets, which I haven't used yet, but I think this is meant to be a way for loopers to fake using the pallets, which I didn't actually know, but survivors actually have the ability to reset their pallets, and I didn't even know they can actually do that. So I'm putting Freddy here because some of his abilities are good. His Mori isn't really that good because it's just very out of context. Like, I don't know how the survivor would not run away when they just got up from the ground normally. I just find that stupid. Ronald McDonald, I do think he's a pretty good killer as well. I'm putting him in the same area as the Huntress because I like his bottles. I much prefer using the pink bottle than the yellow bottle. I don't know what the yellow bottle that looks like a McDonald's Sprite really does, but I think that's meant to significantly make you faster. I used that on myself and that just didn't do anything. So if anyone knows how the yellow bottle works, just let me know in the comments below, and I might actually learn how to use them very well. And honestly, the Clown's actually a pretty good tier. The Legion is a pretty much not self-explanatory, but a very simple character to play as because of his frenzy ability. And honestly, I put him in B tier because I think he can sometimes be a little bit too easy to play as. When you hit someone, a healthy survivor, during your frenzy, you often locate someone around him, which is a good thing for a killer. But I feel like it's kind of a little bit too easy for me sometimes. Like, I do sometimes like a challenge, but not too hard to make it, like, not matter that much. This is not matter that much. I need to swap, I need to swap mouse because it's getting too distracting. Alright, much better. So, next is the ghost face. And honestly, I'll put the ghost face in the B tier below Michael. So while Ghostface and Michael may both stalk their survivors, they both do it in a very different way. Michael, he's not going to give a damn whoever looks at him. He still is going to stalk many people. Have you ever seen the part like where Michael was like near the hedge, like near the hedge bush from the first movie? He's not gonna care how many people stare at you. Like, he's not going to care. He's just going to keep looking at you. But the only issue is that he has a limited amount of power that he can take from. And once everyone glows red, he's no longer going to be able to gain any more power, and he has no choice but to two-shot people. Ghostface may have an unlimited amount of how many times he can expose a person, and there may be a lucky time where he's able to expose all 4 people at once. But the issue is that he has to be careful on who he's stalking and who is actually watching around him. He has to be more aware of his surroundings, much more than just actually trying to just stalk a person just blatantly and normally just when you're standing up. Like, I had Ghostface for a while, like since January or February this year. Like, I did watch Scream 5. I think this was called Scream 5 during this year. And that's kind of why I managed to get Ghostface here. But I'm just never going to be liking Ghostface as much as I like Michael Myers. He does have some sick mask collections though. And imagine, like, can you imagine in DVD that they give Michael a mask with teeth? Give Michael a mask with teeth behavior right now. Pyramid is another satisfying character to play as. Like, it does have some ups and downs with the character. I haven't played Silent Hill, so honestly, I may not know the character's lore and what he truly does in the games. But in DVD, I do think he's actually a pretty cool character to look at, to observe, and to play as. Like, his physique is already badass alone. Like, have you seen what does he? Like, he looks like he can just lift and throw over cars, like Michael would do, but worse in Halloween Rob Zombie version. This guy just looks like the kind of guy who will be telling you, hey, sweetheart, just don't worry about it. He'll be alright. He'll be okay. He just doesn't look that threatening. This is what he would look like. But apart from the looks, his abilities is actually pretty cool and very complicated, which is hence why he's a very hard character to learn. But when you actually get used to his abilities, I do think you can actually get better and more easier to play as him much more than DVD would tell you. Like, DVD would tell you how hard to play this guy, kind of like how rough public schools and private schools or elementary schools would tell you how high school teachers would treat you. And pretty much this thing is actually pretty easy to learn and get used to, honestly. I think it should be put it high up in this list. The Trickster should be in A as well, the same category as the Huntress. Not because he's a ranged character, therefore he reaches there. I think it's satisfying to use throwing knives and how many throwing knives to hit at people. It takes about 5 throwing knives before a person gets damaged or gets put into a dying state. And honestly, I do like him with his abilities of throwing knives. I don't really like his main final event sort of thing, because I just think this is kind of like a waste of using knives. And I don't like how he has a limited amount of time of his adrenaline before using the knives. But if I had a rank to put him below the Huntress, I could, but honestly, I think I should probably put him in this list here. Nemesis should be in... It's a tough call between A and B, but I think I should probably put him in A. I like the whips that he gives, the mutation whips to his survivors when they drop a pallet. I do think that's really satisfying, and the fact that you can actually gain mutation even from zombies, which you don't have to do it from survivors, but I do recommend you still give them to survivors, because just a single whip to a survivor can easily increase half of your first tier and easily make it halfway to the second tier. Nemesis also had, Nemesis is a pretty fun character to play as in DVD as a Resident Evil character, and I do think that he honestly would be a great character to play as. Pinhead, I do pretty much suck at playing as him because of how hard he is to not just learn, but to get used to his abilities. So that's kind of why I'm putting him in D, in D tier. Like I just said D by accident. Honestly, if I got better as Pinhead by practicing playing as him, I do think he'll probably get better, but I'll probably would suffer playing as him to get better as him. So I think he should be in D tier. Until when I get playing as him a little bit more, I think it does get better. You're sitting next to Billy, mate. Sorry. Next is Sadako. I do think Sadako is actually more funner to play than many people do give credit for. However, I don't think she is greater than others. So I think she's more in the B tier. She's kind of a little bit boring to play as because she mostly relies on televisions and manifesting and not manifesting to harm her opponents, to harm her survivors. Her Mori, I'm not really a fan of. I'm not really a fan of the Ring series in general, but in terms of how you play as a character, I do think she's more fun to be up against than it is to be as, to be honest. So I think she's in B. However, I do think it's fun playing as her when you are like outsmarted someone in a loop. I actually did beat a squad without using any perks or tiers whatsoever, but that's not really relevant to the whole tier list. I do think that I just bought like these two characters. Just Wesker was like a couple of days ago. The Knight was like last week. The Wesker, I do think he's a better character to play as than the Nemesis, to be honest. I do like his ability to be able to grab people and bang them against the wall to damage them with their own abilities. I think he's a better character to play as than it is the Nemesis, in my opinion. It is a close call, which is why I put them with an A tier, but if there was another tier above it, like A+, he certainly would be above it. The Wesker that looks like if Neo from the Matrix and Homelander from The Boys basically had a child, is basically better character to play as than it is to a mutated Pinhead. I think I find Wesker more fun to play than it is Nemesis, but that's just my first time playing as him. And finally, we have the Knight. The Knight is the newest character to be ever to enter into Dead by Daylight, and honestly, no, I did play him. What are you talking about? I can't take him out. I'll just keep him here then. So, with the Knight, I thought that he'll be more funner than I thought he would be. But that's because he's brand new. I might have to put him in B tier, to be completely honest. I really do not like how buggy the guards can really be and how you can't really control. I think you can control. I'm not sure if you can actually control switching over to who you actually can summon a guard and which guard you can summon, because each guard role has a different type of advantage over another guard and how good they are into playing a specific role. But honestly, the Knight is easily in B tier. I did really struggle to try to get a 4K. The first time I played him, it was so close, everyone escaped. But I didn't really care about it anyways. And I only got it like a 4K like only once. Like I only got a 4K playing as him like only once. And honestly, playing as him, it can be a bit more harder than many people would think. This is my list on who I think is pretty much more funner to play and which one isn't more funner to play. Let me know what you guys think on which character should be higher and which character should be lower. Thank you guys so much for watching this tier list. Make sure you subscribe to my channel and follow my Twitch channel for more live streams of Dead by Daylight. And I'll see you guys in the next video. See you, people.